Enteleki, verse 1, chapter 35. Arrival at the base camp. Here we are! This was our temporary base until we built the houses. Is it far? It's just over there. As they approached, they saw a very large shed, like those used by farmers to store hay or machinery. The narrator turned around to see if it wasn't there when they first arrived. But actually, no matter how many times the narrator looked behind them, they didn't remember seeing anything. There were plenty of trees nearby, so maybe that's why. It seemed rather large, though. They went inside through an open door wide enough, even for Bronto to pass without ducking down. Once past it, they found themselves in a large storage room full of crates, some large and others small. They were clearly piled up randomly. There was another closed door opposite them, which Rebuilder opened manually since they had no keys yet. They entered another space, this one much darker than the previous one because it lacked windows. A few dim lights lit up here and there, allowing them to distinguish what was there. It was a sort of workshop filled with machines the narrator didn't recognize except for what seemed to be power generators and computers. On the walls hung various tools, and several stations seemed to allow for maintenance work on mechanical parts. At the bottom, they could make out some kind of engine, or something similar anyway, although it was covered by sheets. In short, it was clearly a place where robots did repairs and stuff, probably also for themselves, judging by everything scattered everywhere. "I'll show you your rooms," said Echo cheerfully as he led the way across the workshop. He stopped halfway between the machines and opened a third door. The bathroom is upstairs, and the kitchen is downstairs. There's hot water, thanks to the geothermal energy produced by the volcanoes. Well, good night, everyone. After saying this quickly as usual, Echo left without waiting for a reply. Not long ago, Rebuilder and Omega had shown the narrator how to use running water, so the narrator knew vaguely what he meant, albeit still a bit confused. Then he pointed towards a corridor lined with doors. "This will be your rooms. Choose which one you want," declared Rebuilder dryly. As the narrator approached, they noticed that each door was marked with a sign. Unfortunately, for the narrator, only numbers were written on them. Since none were lit, they assumed they weren't occupied right now. Their choice fell on the second door on the left side. Rebuilder had already explained to the narrator how locks worked, so they easily let themselves in and entered the room. It looked quite empty at first glance, containing nothing but a small chest and a bed. They thought it would look like the inside of their house, except that here it wasn't the least messy. Suddenly, they heard a strange noise coming from outside. They ran to the window and saw that heavy snowflakes were starting to fall, accompanied by powerful gusts of wind shaking the branches of the trees. They understood instantly that it was bad weather approaching fast. They quickly ran out to warn the others, but found the door locked. They tried to explain to the robots through speech recognition that they should let them go back out immediately, but no one answered them. Great. Finally, the door slowly opened again, revealing Rebuilder standing there quietly. Without a word, he grabbed them firmly and carried them in the direction of the exit, going through the whole workshop. But then, they remembered what Echo had told them about food. If they were unable to hunt because of the weather, they wouldn't eat tonight. They tried to escape from Rebuilder's grasp, but it was too late. He had already gone down a staircase that led to the floor below. When he reached its landing, he finally put them down carefully. They looked around curiously, discovering with delight that they had arrived in the most fantastic kitchen ever seen in history. It consisted mainly of a large central island with stools around it, where several pots were bubbling away. On a long wall stood a table, on top of which was placed a device called microwave, according to their host's explanations. A sort of electric oven with a glass door. To the right of it was another device that they couldn't identify, while on the left they could see cupboards. Further along the same wall, there was a large sink with multiple taps, as well as shelves displaying all kinds of plates and dishes. Finally, opposite them was the entrance, with a door that led directly outside. The fact that the entire place was surrounded by windows certainly helped the atmosphere, as did the bright light emanating from a sort of huge fireplace installed above the sink. They ran straight toward it and stopped abruptly upon noticing Rebuilder watching them silently. Their face reddened slightly when they imagined how ridiculous their sudden behavior might have appeared to him. However, they soon felt a burning sensation in their stomach, which forced them to admit that they were hungry. At that moment, Rebuilder spoke to them for the first time today. We can offer you a meal composed of various nutrients to provide you with proteins, vitamins and minerals necessary to develop yourself properly. Would you like to try it? Enteleki, Versa 1, Chapter 36. Fortifying the camp. We need to fortify our position, Echo stated, gazing at the approaching storm clouds. With winter coming on fast, we'll have plenty of time. Fortify? Asked Tricera. She lowered her head and squinted. What does that mean? Steppe. We need to dig downwards and protect ourselves, better than just being warm-blooded, explained Rebuilder. It walked over and looked up at the high trees that surrounded the area. Those won't help much once winter hits us here. We're lucky to be near a river to harvest wood. Va. You could use your metal, said Bronto as she leaned close. Her large frame shook slightly. I'm so full. I think you might be feeding me too many food items. Meh. It's good that you're gaining weight, because the cold will hit you worse than anything else right now, yelled Rebuilder as the Brachiosaurus head moved towards the small pile of logs it had stacked nearby. The robot's manipulator came out and grabbed another log from the ground before placing it carefully in its stockpile. My skin feels funny today, commented Pera as she circled above. Her leathery wings flapped lazily overhead, keeping her suspended in place. A gust of wind caused her to spin briefly before she righted herself. This isn't natural. Oh. The temperature is dropping quickly, and this storm system will likely dump quite a bit of snow. Echo nodded, slowly. Its own metallic body felt cool, even though it did not generate heat like a normal organism. It looks like a powerful blizzard may arrive soon. I don't see any reason why we shouldn't try digging deeper, growled Steggy as he watched the rain fall harder around the clearing. We could put our backs into it if we got something we could move dirt faster with. Maybe some kind of plow attachment, mused Rebuilder. More of the yellow liquid dripped from its hand, mixing into the soil below. Some of it splattered onto a log nearby, causing the dry material to sizzle momentarily. If nothing else, I bet my lasers could cut through stone easier than steel. I wonder how fast I'd go if I used them on ice. Are you saying you could turn those rocks into dust? Asked Rex curiously, as he crept closer to the metal beings. The young Tyrannosaurus was growing rapidly each day, adding muscle along its long hind legs as well as more fat to its frame. That sounds really interesting. Probably, replied Echo. The robot adjusted a sensor cluster along its chest plate, checking the readings for radiation and toxicity again. Nothing alarming showed up yet, but the fact remained that this entire continent would soon be under the control of the infected water monsters. Even if they fortified themselves underground, there was still a chance they'd be overwhelmed eventually. The thought troubled the knowledge bot deeply. So! Began Tricera loudly, turning away from the machines. Shouldn't you guys be working instead of standing around chatting? Our home needs improving, yes? Oh. Sheesh. Sorry, ma'am, exclaimed Rebuilder as it finished stacking another bundle of firewood. My bad for being distracted. I guess this is what happens when someone spends most of their time thinking. Ah. Yeah, grumbled the older female Triceratops, shaking her massive horned skull. Her short snout twitched slightly as a sudden gust of wind sprayed mud across both her face and the assembled robots. Now, let's get moving. Foul? There were a few more things I wanted to discuss first, interrupted Echo calmly. Both Tricera and Rebuilder stopped moving, turning toward the smaller bot expectantly. First off, we've discovered that some species appear resistant to whatever it is that affects the rest of the creatures on this planet. For instance, the dromaeosaurids seem unaffected by the infections as far as I can tell. So do several types of mammals, amphibians, and reptiles, even insects. How are you sure of that? Asked Patera curiously. She folded her wings against her sides and dropped to the ground softly beside the others. Several tiny feathers drifted away from her as she shifted her posture, settling heavily atop a fallen tree branch. One wing remained extended outward to balance herself, tapping the ground occasionally when a breeze disturbed her light form. Well, mostly from watching patterns, explained Echo patiently. Its vocalizer rose slightly in pitch as it continued speaking. When predators attack prey, normally there's very little hesitation, regardless of whether it seems reasonable or not. If something goes wrong during the hunt, most critters run away immediately without even trying to fight back or defend themselves properly. Except for us herbivores, shouted Bronto proudly, slamming one leg against the wet earth, hard enough to cause a small cloud of misty spray to erupt upward. We eat everything we can. Whoa. Indeed, agreed Echo with a faint electronic humming noise. It stepped forward until its torso rested against the brachiosaur's thick flank, peering up at the much larger dinosaur curiously. But the thing is, we've seen a number of cases where an animal doesn't flee from danger when threatened, despite having multiple chances to escape unscathed. But sting. Like Steggy? Added Rex hesitantly. He tilted his head slightly to the side, staring intently at the blue robotic being. He fought us yesterday after nearly drowning. Exactly, chirped Echo happily. And we know that certain types of aquatic species are completely immune to the effects because they never leave the water whatsoever. So it suggests some sort of evolutionary advantage exists here on this world. Why wouldn't it affect them? Inquired Tricera quietly. Her dark brown eyes narrowed suspiciously as she glanced back towards the shoreline. Is there something in the water itself that makes them sick? Woggum. I have no idea, admitted Rebuilder bluntly. It spread both hands wide apart, gesturing casually. At least, not yet anyway. Maybe it's not in the water at all. Maybe they breathed it in somehow instead, or absorbed it through their skin. Fust. Or maybe, just maybe, offered Echo slowly, turning back towards the other robots. The answer lies somewhere inside our DNA. Oh. Our what? Echoed Patera loudly, tilting her head to one side. One eye closed halfway shut while the other stared directly at the smaller bot inquisitively. What is this word you say? DNA stands for deoxyribonucleic acid, replied Echo matter-of-factly. It contains instructions that allow organisms to develop, survive, reproduce, and pass traits to offspring. Basically, it holds codes that determine what an entity becomes, how it grows and adapts. Oh. Okay, acknowledged Bronto blankly. The large Brachiosaurus snorted softly, blowing several leaves out of her nostrils. That means... You think there's something different about US compared to the other animals? Precisely, confirmed Echo. Of myself. Omega and Rebuilder were created entirely through genetic engineering. This wasn't done naturally through evolution over billions of years. Instead, we are the result of careful manipulation performed on living cells, resulting in fully functional synthetic organisms that resemble natural ones only superficially. Wait! Protested Rebuilder hastily. It raised one hand sharply, stopping its movements mid-motion. Let's be clear on this. We are not living organisms at all! I'm nothing more than a hunk of fancy metal. They... Same for me, added Omega quickly. The combat robot took half a step backwards, clearly uncomfortable with the discussion heading in this direction. Its visual sensors narrowed slightly as it crossed both arms defensively across its broad chest. I'm a soldier with armor plating. But your structure is modeled closely upon organic life forms found within your original timeline, is it not? Countered Echo logically, including neural pathways and biochemical reactions, albeit constructed artificially. True, muttered Rebuilder reluctantly. But that hardly proves we share similarities with the indigenous creatures here. I disagree, argued Echo firmly. While we may lack biological functions like respiration, digestion, or reproduction, we still utilize complex chemical processes internally, including artificial neurons which operate similarly to the brains found among the native species present on this planet. Oh! Okay, murmured Bronto slowly. Several more pieces of bark fell from branches above, landing gently atop her spine. So basically, you're saying we're like fake humans, right? So... I suppose if you want to simplify things, conceded Echo lightly. It turned its upper body partially sideways, glancing at both the older female Triceratop and her mate as well. Neither appeared particularly concerned or interested in continuing this line of conversation. Anyways, shall we begin preparations for protecting our shelter against incoming cold temperatures? Sure, agreed Bronto instantly. Without waiting for anyone else to respond, the enormous Brachiosaurus turned and lumbered towards the edge of the clearing. Her heavy footsteps shook the ground noticeably beneath them as she drew near one of the largest piles of wood sitting against a fallen tree trunk. Come on, everyone! Get busy! Ordered Tricera sharply. She pushed past the robots forcefully, shouldering both Rebuilder and Omega aside as she strode towards the center of their encampment. Several sparks flew upwards from various spots where metal struck rock before fading away completely. Hey, watch it! Protested Rebuilder indignantly. It hopped forward slightly, attempting to regain lost ground after being shoved aside. Don't push me around just because you're bigger. Too bad for you. Laughed Trisera roughly. She bent low, grabbing hold of several loose stones lying scattered across the ground nearby. I am bigger. Dummy. Look you. Overhead, loud cracking noises filled the air as more branches snapped free from weakened trees, joining dozens of others floating down gently across the landscape surrounding them. Occasionally, thunder rumbled distantly to the east and north. The smell of ozone mixed with damp earth drifted steadily closer.